when did you realize that you wanted to pivot away from the traditional accounting career?
I got some direct feedback from the managing director that said, Shaye, sometimes when you share a solution with a group, your tone says, you bunch of idiots, and it doesn't help with change management.
I think I was unconventional enough anyway, and everybody tried to make me conventional, if I'm being brutally honest.
I wanted to make better finance teams. I kept coming into businesses and the finance teams were a pain in the butt. Welcome to the Anti-Accountant Podcast. I'm Tyler Caskey.
I'm Shaye Thyer.
And I'm Joe Newbold, where we cut through the finance bollocks, debunk mysteries, spill insider secrets.
Thanks, Joe. And welcome to the show, everyone. We are here to talk about exciting things in accounting. And Shaye, I'm going to hand over to you for the first one. Can you describe to me a moment in your career where you realized the traditional accounting route wasn't for you?
Probably got two, but I don't want to hog the mic. But the first one was super early. Like I started as an undergrad in a mid-tier in Adelaide and spent many months at the photocopier. And that was not what I thought this profession was going to be about. Look, to be fair, and for all those young accountants out there, before everything was in the cloud, we used to do a lot of things under paper. So putting collations together was something that I used to do a lot of. And all the grads did, to be fair, but didn't feel like I was helping anyone. And that didn't progress super fast. It was bits of jobs, fill this spreadsheet out, put numbers in a form, context.
What's a collation?
You don't know what a collation is. When you put the financial statements together with the tax return and you get a binder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was a lot of that. And pleasingly, it was all the grads, regardless of anything, that were doing that work. But I was kind of getting some red flags at that point that the kind of mid-tier life was, or the professional practice life was not really for me.
I had a friend that was a lawyer that realized law or legal wasn't for her when she was standing at a photocopier that wouldn't work in her first year of law after 6 years of study. So it's not an uncommon trend. Joe, how about you? When did you realize that you wanted to pivot away from the traditional accounting career?
I won't name the firm, but it was basically when I was told that no one trusted me to go and speak to people because I didn't fit in with everybody else.
Interesting. And like I thought about this question a lot. And sometimes I think I've had a very traditional accounting career. Like I still do debit credits, I still do all the basics, but yeah, I might not do as many tax returns and financials as I did. But what I did realize when I became a CFO was that I wanted to make better finance teams. I kept coming into businesses and the finance teams were a pain in the butt, or they were a hindrance to the business. They were penny pinching. They weren't spending money on tech. They weren't enabling the business. They weren't delivering good data. And I really thought that there was this opportunity to help make finance teams and accountants like really change the mold of what could be delivered and what type of value could be created around Australia or New Zealand or wherever I was working. And that probably leads me on to like the next one. For me, it was always like these little pieces of wisdom that I received along the way and little feedbacks that I got. Like, what was an unconventional piece of advice that you got along the way, Shaye, that really made you open your eyes and maybe change your path?
I don't know if it was unconventional, but it was certainly direct. So I am always someone that, I don't know why, but I just often see things as really stupid. And typically it's the way things have always been done. So the way we've always put collations together is by doing this binding thing. Ugh, that just sounds dumb to me. And so when I was in a role in a large national mid-tier and my job was to make things better, find the pain, solve for the pain, I got some direct feedback from the managing director that said, love what you're doing, love where the firm's going, love it, love it, love it. Shaye, sometimes when you share a solution with a group, your tone says, you bunch of idiots, and it doesn't help with change management. And at the time I was super irritated because I was like, well, y'all are a bunch of idiots if you've been doing it like this forever. And because I was early 20s, right? But I always remember that because it's not just about the solution, it's about bringing the people on the journey.
I like that. And Joe, how about you? Unconventional piece of advice that you got along your way?
I don't think I got any. I think I was unconventional enough anyway, and everybody tried to make me conventional. if I'm being brutally honest, it was always about you're a rough I think I got called a rough diamond about 3,000 times. And then it was, you can't go out and see clients because we don't trust what you'll say to them. And you've got to fit into this certain mold to be an accountant. And if you want to do this career, you've got to do this. And that was it, really. I don't think there was anything particularly, maybe something unconventional would have come from somebody outside of the industry, but there was absolutely nobody in the industry that gave me any unconventional advice.
Yeah, I was actually the same. Like, I think the most interesting piece of advice or feedback I got was like I was a CFO working in a really good size medium business here in Australia, and I'd pretty much automated my job. I was 18 months in and I had a whole bunch of capacity, and we had like one of the locations that we looked after was just really unprofitable and not managing its jobs well, and it was close to failing, right? Not the business as a whole, but the division. And I talked to the CEO. I was like, hey, I'm ready I really want to take on this role. I want to take on not just the finance stuff, but I was already doing HR, I was doing IT, I was doing admin. I was like, give me a chance like leading the studio. Maybe I don't do the sales, but maybe I do everything else, like all the performance management. And his advice was like, yeah, you can't do that. You're just an accountant. Like you haven't been in this industry. You've got no idea how to run a job. And I'm like, I reckon I do. And like now I run jobs as a living and it goes very well. And I just think sometimes those little pieces stick in your head.
How satisfying though, right? Like you don't ever want to say, I don't think that's quite right, but how satisfying. And Joe, I reckon you probably like a massive bucket of deliverer of unconventional advice now. I can totally see how everyone is just bombarding you with, make sure you get inside the box, Joe. Don't be outside the box.
Yeah, but I also tell people not to be too much like me.
Why do you do that?
Because
it's painful. It's painful, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it is painful. Yeah, I think there's an element that if you are going to be distinctly different, you do have to know your shit and be able to back it up.
Yeah, Joe, I've felt the same. Like I've had many businesses where I've put radical change in. Like I've accepted no status quo. Like I've just broken every bad process or system or opinion that businesses have had and just tried to turn it upside down. And it's really hard. It's really hard to not do the status quo. Like people get angry, people get frustrated because they don't see the long-term vision. But then you start to realize that there's certain people that can go along the journey with you, and some that will spend the time to listen and absorb to the process. Because I've always thought, like, I know the end result. It's going to be a bit fuzzy getting through there, but it's how many people I could kind of take along the way. And sometimes those businesses, Joe, where I said it was painful, it's the businesses that don't see that, you know, the journey. Like they kind of put you in the box of you're a typical accountant, just do the basics, do the debit credits.
Don't you feel like the landscape's different now though? Like I was having a conversation with I call her young because she's younger than I am. She's probably, I think she's a manager or a senior manager in a mid-tier part of the group that look after diversity and inclusion. You can probably see where I'm going with this. And we were having this conversation about how brave she needs to be the one that speaks up about the way things have always been done and how they inequitably, well, how they discriminate against certain groups of people. In this case, we were talking about just stupid gender equity stuff in that particular firm. But it makes me think about what you said, Joe, because it's like, well, you have to, at some points, you have to be brave and say, I am who I am. I know I add value, even though I don't fit in the box. But sometimes it is a bit risky for your career. And this is the flavor of the conversation that I had with this particular woman. But I hope that the landscape is changing now. I hope that there's more space in practice. There's more space in industry for people to show up outside of the box. But because I'm like old and not doing that anymore, I don't actually know what it's like.
Yeah, I agree. I think... Honestly,
you agree that I'm old?
Not as old as me, I don't think. But I do think there's especially with the movement of social media and internet, like the ditching of poor corporate culture has been widely expressed in the market. And it's great to watch all those like HR memes and like consulting memes on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever they are. And it's actually made people less tolerant of bullshit. And I'm here for it. Like, company culture that has old dudes that are yelling and talking down to like young staff, like they will lose staff. And I'm really interested in systems that showcase poor company culture as well as good company culture. I think there's one called like Glassdoor or something like that as well, which are really cool.
So do you think there is ever exceptions where a company needs to have that cutthroat culture still?
Yeah, I do, but you can do it with respect. You don't have to be a dick. Like, you can run a really high performance team with people that are working long hours with tight deadlines that are actually rewarded well, but you have to do it the right way. You have to treat people like adults. Like, I always think, treat people like adults and they'll behave like adults. Treat people like children and they'll behave like children. Like, it's about ditching hierarchy and working as a team, I think, is always the best one. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it's the absolute truth in how to get the best out of people.
Would that be like your one thing of outdated things that we do in the accounting industry that you ditch, Tyler?
It's the thing I ditched from the moment I got into a leadership position. As soon as I walked in, my team, I was like, hey, we're equals. You're good at some things. I'm good at some things. We know all we've got to do is work together to get the result, right? Sure, like if things go wrong, yes, it's on me, right? But also our job is to work together to make sure things go right. Shaye, what would be your number one thing that like you strive to put into the accounting market? Like, you know, the thing that maybe makes your company and thought process sing.
So I'm very impact focused. So I recognize that with the craft that we have in the financial space, we've got such a huge opportunity to change people's lives. And I know that sounds like, oh, this is like my mission statement or something big and broad and kind of wanky, but I have always believed that. Like, the reason I got into accounting because I want to help people, and because I recognized even at a young age with hardly any life experience and hardly traveled and all the things, that there were people running businesses that were awesome at their thing, but they're not awesome at running their business. And so if I could learn that bit, then I could support them with that bit. And I've always liked that idea of being the wing woman, being behind the scenes, the GSD, get shit done person, and letting that other person go and do their awesome thing, be awesome at their craft, dive into the things that really light them up. And so I've taken that kind of philosophy and applied it to what we do at Palace. And this is why we work exclusively with women, is because what I've seen growing up in practice and what I've seen a lot of is more of a generic approach to business and business owners. And what we know, because the industry is so male dominated, is that that's very tailored through a man's lens. And when we look through a woman's lens, a woman that runs a business, she might be a parent, she might be all the things. It's far more complicated and there's far more mental load than if you're working with, generalizing, but typically if you're working with a man that runs a business. And so knowing that, having lived that, having done all the things and recognizing the gaps, that's why we do that work, is because what we find is that women business owners need far more support. And I don't mean they need far more support because they're not as good. They need far more support because they carry far more load. They need help prioritizing. They need to be empowered to put things down. They need to be empowered to prioritize themselves, like the oxygen mask analogy. Like, you've got to look after yourself if you're going to run this business, run the family, do all the things, carry all the load. And so that's why I've been really deliberate about choosing this path, because the rest of the industry effectively is tailored to empower men that run businesses. And so I'm going to spend my time empowering women to do the same.
That's really, really good. I've never heard that so well expressed.
Thank you.
So Joe, over to you, mate.
Yeah. So Shaye, got a question for you. In your view, what's the most significant barrier accountants face today in achieving high performance, and how did you tackle it?
So lots of differing views around what high performance looks like. So I'm just going to look through my lens and my lens is, I think a high performance accountant is very impact focused. So they're not just crunching things, they're actually invested in outcomes for their clients genuinely, because it's a human activity, human to human value transfer, if you like. And so in my opinion, the biggest barrier is actually the way professional practice is structured. I think it's like 20 years out of date. I think it presents massive barriers for people showing up as themselves at work. And because they can't show up as themselves, and again, general broad brush, because they can't show up as themselves at work, then they miss opportunities to connect with other humans who happen to be clients that run businesses. Because of that, no one wants to be an accountant anymore. It's just not, and everyone likes to throw around this word sexy. It's nothing about being sexy. It's about being meaningful and satisfying and impactful. And so I think the way public practice is organized, the hierarchies in the firms, the fact that you have to mortgage your house to be recognized as a leader in those firms is absolutely bonkers. And I'm trying really hard not to use swearing adjectives because I feel very passionately about this. But it's the whole way that part of the industry is organized that presents barriers to awesome, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. The professional practice, the way it's structured, and the accountancy exams, they are for a specific purpose. They are to comply with regulation and legalities. They are to conduct audits, and they are to work in regulated sectors. That's about it. If anybody thinks that they can come from a top four as a senior manager, leave there, and then come into an owner-managed craft ale brewery business that's turning over 10 million and thinks they know what the fuck's going on, they're grossly mistaken. There's so much we could do along the journey, training accountants particularly. I mean, let's be honest. People only go to the top 4, the top 10, the top 20, the top 50 to get qualified. I very much doubt most people enjoy their job along the way. There are some people who are exceptional. There are some people who join the school leaver program. There was an example recently of the first guy who joined at Deloitte at the age of 16. He's now a partner. Amazing achievement, right? Big kudos to that guy. He's in the top 0.01%. Not everybody's going to be doing that kind of behavior. Tyler?
Yeah, man, I liked my time at the Big Four. Like, part of it was hard, but some of the relationships I made, the friendships I made, some of the learnings I had, and I'm talking like KPMG New Zealand and Deloitte Australia. Like, it's not that much different to other accounting firms. Like, I had friends in audit that were working, no lie, like 16-hour days, right? But just don't do audit. Audit sucks. Like, it does. Like, it's a necessary evil, but like, it's just not like a fun place to work. But I still remember the best performing business manager we had at Deloitte. His name was Kieran Mitchell. And he walked in the door at 8:30 and he walked out the door at 6:06 every single day because he had to get on a train because he lived in the whoop-whoops. And he was just an absolute weapon at getting things done. But to come back to the question you asked Shaye about the barriers, I think they're internal barriers. I think we limit ourselves by our fear of changing jobs and being judged, our fear of the recruiter not going, oh, you're the perfect candidate, and maybe not. I've been knocked back from certain CFO jobs because if I wasn't progressing after 2 years, I'd leave. I'd get higher pay because, like, if I'm not taking the top job or aiming for that, like, I wanted somewhere else as a 30-year-old. And I think those barriers are really internal. Like, I was always amazed at some of the people I worked with that were just very happy to do the status quo and to do the absolute basics and really not strive to do something better and look for the next thing. That's where I saw. Joe, what did you see? What was the barriers for you?
The barriers for me were similar to something we discussed earlier in being unconventional. Nobody wanted to let you off the reins. I'm very, very grateful to 3 or 4 people in my career. John Taylor, Kevin Lee, Martin Rossiter, Andy Lewis. John got me my first job in Tenon, which is now RSM, in the small business team. And then the other 3 people, one was a partner and one were the 2 managers of that department. There was like 20 or 25 of us churning out annual accounts and tax returns for partnerships, limited companies, owner-managed businesses. I think the first time I got let out of the office, actually, this is no word of a lie, is because nobody else wanted to go there. I had to go. No, I can't remember. I think I had to go to a farm. Right, it was considered not the most cleanliest of places. And you open up loads of sealed boxes, and all of the paper stank of dogs, cat piss, and horses. And then I had to sift through 4 or 5 cardboard boxes of that for like a week. Right, I think it was kind of a laugh, but I had to accept it because it was the first time I was allowed out of the office. So, but
Mate, I was the same, man. I did a retirement village that had something like $14 million unallocated on interest that earned interest on interest. And we had to allocate it. And I scrambled through, it was around 400 boxes of paperwork of previous residents in a storage cage that was the size of my apartment that had like mattresses and bikes and everything. It's the same play. Wow.
But it's not, I don't think my work there was ever undervalued because, well, like Shaye was talking about earlier, you'd have the square folders and you'd hole punch everything and you'd have like schedule A1, A2, A3, all the way through to like whatever they were so that the manager could review it. There was always a joke that my folders were round because I would cut so many corners in order to get the job done on time and make the business a profit. Sometimes it got kicked back at me and they were like, yeah, do it properly. Other times they would say, yeah, that's enough. And Kevin Lee,
you're my worst nightmare as a grad, mate.
Yeah. Kevin Lee was the partner at the time. He took me to see Man United and Roma at Old Trafford when they won 6-1 in the Champions League. Banging night. So all of the grief.
Soccer talk.
Oh, actually, I remember another story. This was possibly the most unconventional advice that gave me a kick up the arse. Every year, every 6 months, people got pay rises for passing exams. I think I passed 3 of my exams that season. I went into Martin's office. He said, "I'm sorry, you're not getting a pay rise." I was like, "Why not?" He's like, "Yeah, because you fell asleep in Kaplan in the classes every afternoon." I was like, "Yeah, but I passed." He said, "Yeah, but we got to set an example." So I took the letter. I went into a guy's office called Mike Cheetham, and he was the head partner of like all the people in the office at the time, like 200 people. And I just ripped the letter up and went, "This is bullshit, mate. What the fuck is this?" And then, and then like a week later, they came back and gave me a $2,000 pay rise. So there were because it wasn't the second time it happened. That was the second time. The first time I went, okay, I'll accept it and I'll work harder. Second time I was like, no, I'm not having this nonsense.
Good job.
And can we just add that whole you get judged as an accountant in a practice by how good your work papers are to the list of stuff that's outdated and needs to go in the bin?
My work papers were fantastic, Shaye. I don't know what you're talking about.
Tyler, I know you are the quality guy. You are all about quality. I could just imagine your practice compliance is bang on. So is mine, by the way. And if the CA asks, that's exactly what everyone is telling them. And my audit will say the same thing. But genuinely, there is nothing that used to irritate me more than can you go and polish these work papers and your charge out rate is whatever it is. I was having a joke about this last week. I was like, still like $120. And they were like, yeah, nah, man, like 180. Okay, yep, inflation. And I'm old. But like seriously, was the impact of what Joe did different? No. Was it probably amazing work? Yep. Did he make a profit? Yep. Does that manager probably need to pull their finger out and be a bit more agile? I would argue yes.
No, see, this is where I think accountants go wrong. Is like, I get the approach, but I think so many accountants crash and bash the job as fast as they possibly can, and they don't think about the next year because like they don't solve it. They just try to get the minimum out as fast as they can, then get on to the next one, and it loses quality, and it costs the person doing it next year so much time if you've just got crappy quality, crappy work papers. And it just, honestly, man, I think you can save yourself or the next person 50% of the time by actually fixing a problem rather than just doing the minimum. And I see this in so many businesses, like crappy balance sheet recs and just like, oh, I don't know what that $200,000 is. So I decided to look at it next year. And I hate it.
I think I have a different opinion, and this is why we're not in practice now, all 3 of us, by the way.
Not the same practice.
I regularly come into a business now where a company that's supposed to be recording revenue monthly records it once a year because the accountants don't really know what they're doing. And it's a case of, okay, I'll fix it. How long does it take to fix? Hour and a half. Done. If that person knows what they're doing, and they are one of the high-performing people that we are talking about and that we would love to mentor to get to where they should be, then they're not going to have any problem picking up a load of shit from the year before. It's the people who are ticking boxes and being trained by those people who tick boxes to fit a certain mold that will struggle, because there's no linear path for them to follow. If you want to be vanilla, then continue to be vanilla.
But vanilla is exactly the reason why we struggle to get humans to come and work in our industry.
Vanilla is also the reason why the top 4 accountancy firms get fined hundreds of millions of pounds a year for failed and negligence on audits.
Jesus.
What was your hashtag from before, Tyler? Don't work in audit.
I did my time in audit, and it's
too.
It's just not worth it.
I mean, look, right. Classic example: UK Patisserie Valerie. They had a hidden bank account or a hidden bank loan somewhere that the audit didn't find, and then obviously their shit's over after that.
So I think we're talking about vanilla, but typically our profession is perceived as pretty conservative. Now, I don't know if it's just my echo chamber and inner circle, but I couldn't name a conservative accountant in my own circles. Maybe you just put out, what is that analogy about you get back what you put out, whatever. Anyway, I realized that I do not fit into any of the boxes. I do not identify as an accountant. So, but like, how have you, Tyler, I mean, you're super innovative, so I know that this is probably going to be a dumb question for you, but like, how have you kind of thrown off that conservative sense and brought creativity and agility and that kind of thing into what you do?
Yeah, for me, it starts about being good to work with. And I know that sounds funny to answer that question that way, but I think the biggest thing that accountants lack is they're just not typically good to be in a business with. Like, as I mentioned before, like they're penny pinching, they're doing the basics well, they're always busy, they haven't got time to help. And I always think if you can be good to work with, then people get you involved in more things, and you've got more leeway from the CEO you've got trust that you're actually looking out for the team and the business as well. And so for me, it's that is like the foundational piece of like being a good and innovative accountant, is be a positive impact. Like, say hello when you walk in. Like, the first thing I did whenever I came into a business was like clean up the finance office and the finance area, right? So like people know that you had your shit together, because a cluttered office is a cluttered mind, in my opinion. And then the second part is like automate the churn, clean your own house, right? Like get your own house kind of running really well. And then you might have 3 or 4 hours extra in a day that you can actually go, all right, how can I make this business better, right? Like who's underperforming on sales and who can I help? Who needs better targets? Whose targets are wrong? Whose targets sitting at $1 million for the year when really they should be 700,000, because there's been a huge change in the health industry and there's no way they can hit that target. So I always look at like cleaning my own house first, being a good team member, and then what kind of value I can add. That's how I play.
Don't you also like wear shorts with your shirt?
I have been told off. Shaye,
you know,
thanks
my dad said to me, so when I started in accounting, he was mortified because in addition to 2 piercings in my earlobe, I went and got 2 piercings in the top of my ear. And he was like, oh, you're going to be an accountant and this is going to affect your career. And then I got a couple of tattoos and he was like, oh, you can't do that. You know, This is really, people are going to judge you, you know, it's super conservative, blah, 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 which I found really interesting. And I think actually he wasn't far off the mark when I started. Now, I don't think anyone give 2 hoots. In fact, my biggest fan and one of my favorite humans in the whole world, Emma Fabro, when I met her, she said to me, something like this. I can't remember exact words because it was like lots of fangirling. It was, oh my God, I follow you online. It's so exciting to me. You're a cool accountant because you've got an earring in the top of your ear. And I always remember that. And we've been joking about getting tattoos together if we win certain awards and stuff like that. So
it's a painful part of professionalism, the way we get judged by how we look and what we wear. I still remember one of the best managers I worked with wore $200 suits and like drove like a little crappy Toyota Yaris and just didn't care, but he was like a good accountant. And it really just doesn't matter anymore. Like I run a multi-million-dollar business wearing shorts and a t-shirt, sitting in the office at home. And it just doesn't, the whole market has changed. And I think we've really got an opportunity in this time to foster businesses with global reach from a small organization that doesn't have to be radiused within 5 kilometers.
I think your view on that very much depends on whether somebody is employing you as a consultant, as a professional advisor, or as an employee. Their view of the limits of what you can and can't do and say and wear are very, very different. I could have a chat with somebody this afternoon, whatever, next week, wearing this, and it would be okay, and I may or may not get the job, right, based on my credibility and how I think I can solve their solution. Alternatively, if I turned up like this to a full-time job as a finance director, they're going to be like, "Oi, what the fuck are you wearing?"
Nah, man, it's changed.
Mate, honestly, I absolutely
It depends.
It depends, man. I worked in a recruitment business that the head of sales and I would walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. He would wear flip-flops. And I think I wore Chuck Taylors if it was, hot. Like, no one cares. In the right businesses, it does not matter what you wear anymore.
If anyone is listening to this who is a CFO or an FD, full-time, permanent, office-based job, if they turned up in shorts and t-shirt or shorts and a polo shirt to an interview, please let us know. You will come on the show and you can tell us your experiences, because I don't think it's happened. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
You can't turn up for the interview. I know that it's really
that's what I'm talking about. We interview like this. Okay, I can turn up to an interview like this, no problem, as a consultant. You go for a full-time job, absolutely not going to fly.
I agree.
In fact, a great story. I know Shaye's got one after this. I was working in financial services in London one time for a grad job. It was Dress Down Friday. Dress Down Fridays in London are still chinos and shirt and like maybe some suede shoes, right, if you're lucky.
Please don't let this be another soccer story, but that's all right.
No, it's not. Anyway, this guy turned up. I told the agency, it's Dress Down Friday, smart casual. He's turned up, full suit, tie, pocket square, the lot. And I've looked at him and gone, "Listen, mate, did you get the memo?" He said, "Yeah." So what are you wearing a pocket square for? And he said, "Well, if you don't take yourself seriously, who else is going to take you seriously?" I gave him the job.
Oh my God, so many things. My mum used to say, and this will start to form a bit of a picture as to all these little traumas that I've got, right? My mum used to say, "You look good, you feel good."
That is true. If you feel like shit and you put some good clothes on, you might feel better for an hour.
I agree with this. I recently have kind of put a little bit more effort into, I am literally in this chair like this most of the week. Recently put a little bit more effort into that, and I'm feeling quite good. I feel like I'm a bit sharper and all the things. But you go the other spectrum that says, well, you have to look good to feel good, which is a lot of pressure. Anyway, never mind that. I once worked for an organization. It was my first role out of practice in industry. And to your point, Joe, there's absolutely no way that I came out of my practice role knowing how to run a business. So this was like really quickly learn how to run a business. I think I did okay. But I misread the onboarding pack, the paper onboarding pack. I thought it said, like, dress code, you can wear this, you can wear that, you can wear skirts, you can wear dresses, What it actually said was, you must wear skirts or dresses. So, of course, the first day I roll up, power suit, in pants. I like dresses, I wear dresses, I like skirts, and I like pants, it's all good. But it actually said, you have to wear skirts or dresses. It's a family-run business. I'm not going to fill in the gaps. You can figure it out yourself. So literally
Was this in the 60s?
No, it wasn't in the 60s. They had certain beliefs in their family and all of that, each to their own. So yes, had to wear a dress or a skirt. So that happened. So it was a very awkward first day of me clearly outing my poor attention to detail, for one. And B, I wasn't like as feminist as I am now then, but I definitely had to leave that at the door. But I like skirts and dresses, so it wasn't a big deal.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so we're going to close it up. I'll summarize what we've talked about on this episode. We've talked about wearing pants to an office. We've talked about working in the Big Four or working in audit, how it can be painful. Some of the barriers. Don't work in audit, I agree. Unless you love it, go ahead, do it. But we've also talked about like the barriers that we've had as accountants, some of the best pieces of advice that we've really had. And then also, what are the things that people do to make their accounting career better? How do they break the mold? So, Joe, how do people find you?
LinkedIn, Joe Newbold.
Shaye?
Same. LinkedIn, Shaye Thyer, or at our website, wearepalace, PALLAS.io.
Excellent. And I'm Tyler Caskey, a partner at The Bean Counters. Find me on LinkedIn or thebeancounters.com.au. Our team specializes in system scoping implementation. Joe, you're the master of startups. Is that about right?
Yeah, master of startups, financial modeling, small scale automations, implementations, helping founders navigate the world of dilutions and protecting their own interest in their startup.
Wow. And Shaye, what do you specialize in?
So if you're a woman running your own business and the mental load is getting a bit crazy, we can definitely help you deload with some finance automation and support.
Nice. I like that. Thanks everybody for listening. From Joe, Shaye, and myself, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.